Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life, Life-Changing Tools for Healthy Relationships by Marshall Rosenberg. A conversation that doesn't go according to plan isn't uncommon. What about yourself? Have you ever been irritated or offended by what someone else has said to you? When it comes to communication, we're often combative, even when we don't intend to. To help with this, we'll use nonviolent communication, NVC. All of our daily interactions can benefit from the principles of nonviolent communication, NVC. Our deepest needs and the needs of others can be communicated through nonviolent communication. For conflict resolution in all areas to improve, we must speak with honesty and empathy when using the NVC language. When Marshall Rosenberg first developed NVC in the community, he had been trained as a psychotherapist. His training in psychology, particularly Carl Rogers' humanistic approach, influenced his writing. A nonviolent communication organization based on the principles of the book was founded by him, the Center for Nonviolent Communication, CNVC. In conflict zones like Rwanda and the Middle East, these programs have proven to be effective, but they can also be used at home or in a therapy room. Here's a brief overview of some of the key concepts. An introduction to life-alienating communication and how NVC provides an alternative not only helps us improve our own personal lives, but also helps us build consensus within groups and reduce societal aggression. He then goes over the 4 steps of NVC, which are meant to help us better understand and communicate our needs. This is followed by a discussion of what constitutes life-alienating communication and how to avoid it. In our daily lives, we strive to maintain a sense of well-being and peace for ourselves and those around us. Life-alienating communication is shaped by a variety of cultural influences, such as the lessons we learn from our parents and coworkers. "The problem with you is that you're too selfish," is a common refrain. Moralistic statements like this force us to make value judgments about what is good and bad. When someone's actions don't line up with our beliefs, this is especially apparent. There are times in which it's easy for us, as human beings, to turn a situation into a who is what story that includes insults and categorizations, such as smart versus ignorant and attractive or unattractive. When this happens, tensions rise and the likelihood of violence increases. The second component is drawing comparisons. People were asked to look at a series of images in Dan Greenberg's How to Make Yourself Miserable for an Interesting Experiment. People were asked to participate in the amusing experiment to see how they reacted to current media standards of beauty. Photos of men and women were shown to the participants, who were then asked to compare their own appearance and body measurements to those shown. Participants were then asked to reflect on their feelings as a result of making this comparison. Obviously, these comparisons made the subjects feel insecure and downtrodden. The third component is particularly dangerous, and this is where people might say things like, "I lied to the client because the boss told me to," or "You make me feel guilty." Comments such as these allow us to escape accountability. Ultimately, this leads to a reduction in kindness and empathy towards others. We communicate in a way that makes it difficult for us to take ownership of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Other ways of communicating in a way that alienates others include making requests that sound like demands or believing that we can force others to do what we want. In other words, we can take the stance of who deserves what, in which case we say that some actions merit a reward while others merit a penalty. Nonviolent communication, NVC, is an alternative to these communication methods, which are deeply ingrained in our personal and societal narrative. Conscious and well-intentioned communication are at the heart of NVC. Because it isn't mechanistic or aimed at influencing others, it only works in situations where people are open and honest with one another. This is the foundation for NVC's 4 key steps. In order to understand how we feel about our observations, we must first become aware of what we're observing. In the third step, we can express our needs based on how we feel. When we are able to articulate our desires, we are able to determine what we should request in order to improve our lives. The 4 NVC components can be seen in this relationship between a mother and her son. There are 3 pairs of dirty socks near the television, and 1 under the coffee table, which makes me irritated. Take note of not only what the mother is saying but also how she is feeling at the time as well. Components 1 and 2 are here. I am irritated because I need to live in a tidy living area, because we all share the space, she may continue, indicating her need. Put your socks in the washing machine, she might add as a final request to make her life easier, concluding with the 4th component. Our well-being is influenced by our observations. It's all about what we notice, hear, remember, and imagine when we make an observation. Observations have a direct effect on our mental and physical health. There's an important caveat to keep in mind when doing any kind of observation. However, we must keep in mind that we need to distinguish between observations and evaluations here. The reason for this is that an evaluation is tainted with criticism or blame. As an illustration, the statement "Doug procrastinates" can be considered both an evaluation and an observation because it describes Doug's behavior. Although the term procrastinates, as used here, implies a certain degree of judgment, a freestanding observation like "Doug only studies for exams the night before" could be made instead. Bringing in time and context is a way to avoid making judgmental assessments. To use an example, if we were to say, "Hank Smith plays soccer poorly," we would be expressing our disapproval of him. This observation can be changed to a more neutral sentiment about Hank Smith by inserting time and location. As a result of this, we could say, "Hank Smith has not scored a goal in 20 games." We need a vocabulary of feelings in order to express our thoughts and emotions after making an observation. We are given some helpful terms and exercises to help us get started with expressing our feelings. The tricky part is that we have to separate our feelings from our thoughts and interpretations in order to express them. Starting with the thought-based expression, "I feel inadequate as a guitar player," let's see how it differs from an actual physical sensation. There are many ways to express this, but one of the most common is to say, "I am frustrated with myself because I feel like I'm not making progress." English is a complex language, so we're given exercises to help us understand it. Is the statement "I feel you don't love me" based on the speaker's feelings? An appropriate test? No, this is not the case. Instead of the speaker's own feelings, this statement focuses more on what the other person might be thinking. As a result, we must acknowledge the fundamental need that underlies our feelings. "I feel X because I need Y" is a helpful way to structure our sentences. So if you were to tell your partner, "I'm annoyed when you're always late," you'd be expressing a feeling rather than a necessity. A desire would be expressed by saying, "I get annoyed when you come home late, because I had hoped we'd get some front row seats." Component number 4 is asking for something, but not overtly so. This necessitates the use of direct, positive language that emphasizes our desired outcomes rather than our desired outcomes that we do not want. It might be helpful to begin our request by asking, "Would you be willing to?" So, let us try it once more. What if the following is a clearly stated need that calls for immediate action? There is no need to be dishonest about yesterday's meeting. "Be honest with me" is not a stated demand because it does not ask for a specific action. "Please tell me how you feel about my meeting behavior," or "What could I have done differently?" are preferable responses. Vulnerability can be a powerful tool for reducing conflict. When we express our needs, we leave ourselves open to being exploited by others. In society, it is common to discourage feelings of vulnerability, but expressing vulnerability can have a significant impact on conflict. We have 4 options when we're confronted with negative communication. A common coping mechanism is to point the finger at ourselves and wonder why we're feeling down. The second option is to place all of the responsibility for the problem on the speaker. Because they imply that communication should be seen as an either-or choice, the first 2 options are unhelpful in determining who is to blame. For a successful relationship, we must be aware of both our own needs and those of our partner. As a first step, let's work on expressing our own desires. As an NVC practitioner, you connect your own feelings to a need, whether it is your own need or the need of another individual. As a result, you may be upset and angry that your supervisor didn't show up for a meeting, which you could have used to catch up with family. As a result, we can become emotional slaves, believing that we are responsible for everyone's happiness if we don't express our own needs. When we realize this, we may become enraged because we don't want to carry the weight of these other feelings around with us all the time. When we learn to respond with compassion instead of fear or guilt, we are liberated from our emotional prisons. Remember that it's perfectly acceptable to be open and honest about what you need and how it affects your emotions. Engaging with the needs of others through the use of NVC. NVC is a two-way street just like any other form of communication. We must also learn to empathize with others' needs in order to express our own. And the same 4 elements apply. As a first step, we need to pay attention to what other people are saying. Finally, we must respond to their requests. This requires us to put aside our own thoughts, feelings, and judgments in order to listen with an open mind. Instead of empathizing, many of us tend to sympathize. Reflecting and paraphrasing until we get to the heart of what someone needs is the essence of empathy. After that, we must give them the opportunity to express their ideas on how to best meet their needs. Sometimes all we need to do is take a deep breath and remain silent. When we don't speak and instead concentrate on hearing what other people have to say, we actually say quite a bit. Furthermore, Our ability to empathize is hampered when we attempt to interpret the words of others from an intellectual perspective. As a result, our ability to empathize with others is hindered because we're distracted by our own thoughts rather than theirs. Let's take a look at this situation to see if this is an example of empathic listening. "You are not my real mother," says person A. Person B, "Are you annoyed by the way I'm treating you?" Yes, person B is empathizing with what person A is saying in this situation. Being more empathetic and listening to the needs of others will quickly reveal why NVC works so well in conflict management. Using nonviolent communication, NVC, in conflict resolution and mediation. NVC's approach to conflict resolution differs conceptually from most other conflict resolution processes. Instead of settling for a compromise, the goal of NVC is to fully meet the needs of both parties. This is a difficult process because it requires both parties to establish a respectful and caring connection, and to recognize their shared needs. We can use this book's 5-step process in conflict situations to our advantage. To begin, it is necessary for both parties to clearly state what they require. Each party then has to look for the underlying needs of the other party in order to move forward. It's important that they verify the accuracy of this understanding after they've done so. In order for everyone to understand each other's needs accurately, patience and a great deal of listening are required. Once everyone is satisfied that their needs have been adequately communicated, the group can move on to formulating practical strategies for resolving the conflict at hand. Finding the information you're looking for in a message takes time, effort, and a little bit of luck. As a rule, we should use present language expressions like, "Would you be interested in?" ending on a high note. The goal of NVC is to make society kinder and more empathic. Empathy for ourselves is the first step in helping others connect with others, but it isn't the only one. Rosenberg contends that if we don't already have something, we can't give it to someone else. In other words, we must learn to listen to our inner voice and recognize our own needs and wants. To practice NVC, we must be aware of our feelings, our needs, and how to express them. This is a self-reflexive process. It may mean allowing ourselves to feel vulnerable, but it allows us to let go of our preconceptions. A critical awareness can also help us develop critical listening skills and better understand the feelings of those we interact with. Effective nonviolent communication communicates through kindness and empathy. For this reason, it's designed to help us better understand our own needs and those of others, as well as strengthen relationships that are in need of healing and reduce societal violence. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.